I'm really hoping that more people will have this Family Mental Health Cafe experience. I can tell you from doing them that it is actually exhilarating. You might imagine that getting a group of people to talk together to talk about what can be difficult experiences wouldn't feel that way. But I think what I found is that when people come together like that, it is really exhilarating to have the experience of talking to each other in this way about issues that you don't get to talk about all the time. And even in that room, there are some wonderful creative things that came from having all of those different perspectives in one space and bouncing ideas off each other and hearing things from another perspective. So my hope is that people will do this more. And one of the outputs of this project will be kits so that people can do their own Family Mental Health Cafe. And I'm happy to say that already people have expressed interest in doing this. So I'm hoping that will be one of the legacies of this work. The reason that we call this a cafe is not just because we have provided coffee. It is called a cafe because there is this method of bringing people together called the World Cafe. It's called a World Cafe partly because it's a sort of global movement about how do we bring people together to talk about things that matter to us, right? So the idea is that you're going to bring people together to answer questions that matter. I believe that when people first called in to ask about the cafes, they really weren't sure what to expect. And certainly in the mental health care system, we bring families together for various types of things, but they're often quite focused on a particular service. So the idea that we were just going to come together and talk about the experience as a whole was something that I think was a bit different for people, as well as the fact that we were having a group that included both people who were identifying as diagnosed with mental illness and people who were identifying as people who were family members or people that cared about them. So I think they weren't sure what to expect. But certainly once people came into the room, I think that they really appreciated knowing that at least what they knew about the people in the room is that they had some shared experience of what they were living with. And that seems like a real icebreaker in terms of people being able to connect, and the energy in the room was amazing.
So the first step, so on the day of the cafe, what a family member would experience is as soon as they open the door, someone from our team or someone from the host agency would greet them. So they feel like, yep, you got to the right place. Then they'd be welcomed with food. So they're not starving for the next 4 hours. And they'll be sitting anywhere. They're able to move in any one of the smaller groups, meet people. We always allow time for people to just settle in. We know that, it's a Saturday morning. So we always allow people time to just meet others, get what they needed, ask questions about the study. Charmaine was so wonderful in the way she would go walk around each group, introducing herself, sitting with people before the whole show got started.
So thank you very much for giving us your Saturday morning to spend time with us. This project around family mental health, obviously near and dear to my heart, but has been rolling out, and we've had some marvelous experiences with other people around the province. We're looking forward to having another marvelous experience with you this morning. It really is about looking at the whole family in terms of what's going on. Something that was a bit different about what we were doing is that we brought it down to just 3 or 4 questions that were really asking people about what works, what doesn't work, what kind of help they need, what kind of things they wish were in place for families. Another thing that was different about what we were doing is that often when we're doing work around caregiving and families, we have family members together as a group and we talk to them about what's going on. Sometimes people bring together people that are diagnosed with mental illness, but actually that's fairly rare. And what we wanted to do in this project was have a group that was a mix of both people who were diagnosed with mental illness and the people that care about them. So in the cafe, we're going to be having these focused conversations about what I'm calling questions that matter. There are 4 rounds of questions, and you'll be sitting at your tables, sharing and learning from each other about your experiences. To talk about, like conversations that matter. So a few issues, you have an issue that you want to sort of get people to talk about, to think about, to share about, in hopes of coming up with some ideas about how are people doing this? What do people need to do this? How can we be doing this better? How do we learn from each other? How do we share that information? What I'm hoping is that the material that comes from these cafes, as well as some of the other parts of the project, will eventually be materials that will be used for all kinds of education.
What I loved about this group was, listening to everybody else talk as well and reading your boards. We all have entirely different stories, but we all have almost exactly the same experiences. So it's so nice, and we talked before we started that we hear, oh, this is a judgment-free area. Oh, you can talk freely, but if you do, you're judged. And it's so important when everything else has made you tired right down to your soul that you can come to places like this and actually let your guard down. Actually not walk on those eggshells for a minute and just kind of go, I get why support groups work, because you do feel alone, you feel isolated. So thank you so much for everybody sharing, because it really helps everybody else understand that you can always pick up the phone or text or email or connect on Facebook and know that people do understand your story. And you're not just going to hear, you know what you should do, which I'm sure we all have. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you for your service in this field, and because without you folks, and I'm thankful that you're reaching out. What I also found very interesting today was to have folks that are challenged with mental illness in the group. Mm-hmm. Often I found that we're separated when we're talking about things, and I think that having this today was a wonderful way of working together, because I heard some things today that I'm going to take away. So I'd like to thank you for
Thank
today.
you. Thank you.
I think it was actually just nice to just hear other people's stories, their family members and their own personal mental health stuff and whatever. So I think any information that I receive that may relate to me and somehow is therapeutic and healing for me.
I think that family members do not feel like they are listened to in the system, or that they're listened to very selectively, only when the system wants something from them. And I think that being able to come into a space where they could bring forward things that maybe they don't get to talk about, and also really feel that people wanted to hear it and wanted to do something with that, was something that people quite appreciated. Ultimately, big thank you. Thank you so much for everything that you shared today. Thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you so much for coming and telling your story in hopes of helping other people who are going through something similar. I promise you I will do my best to get it out there to people who need it.